This is 6 Minutes, the Seriously International Daily Newscast. It's Friday, February 21st, and I'm Jacob Shropshire.
And I'm Emma Albright. It's almost bedtime in Brisbane, while Mexico City's early risers are already on the go. Here in the World Crunch newsroom in Paris, it's just after midday. These are the latest headlines. Netanyahu says Hamas will pay for not returning remains of hostage. Zelensky meets U.S. envoy as Rubio says all options are open. And our daily quiz question helps define art in Germany. Our top story today is the aftermath of Hamas not returning the remains of an Israeli hostage promised in the ongoing ceasefire agreement. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said Friday the Palestinian militant, quote, will pay after specialists said that one of the 4 bodies handed over by Hamas as part of the ceasefire deal was an unidentified woman, and not hostage Shiri Bibas. Meanwhile, Arab leaders are meeting Friday in Saudi Arabia to discuss an alternative plan to the one that U.S. President Donald Trump has promoted for Palestinians to be pushed out of Gaza and for the United States to take control of the territory to transform it into a seaside resort.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky called for a, quote, strong Ukraine-U.S. relations after meeting with U.S. envoy Keith Kellogg in Kyiv on Thursday. The meeting came after President Donald Trump this week called Zelensky a dictator and falsely claimed that Ukraine was to blame for Russia's invasion. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said all options to end the war are still on the table. The U.S. government and a Venezuelan state airline flew 177 Venezuelan migrants from Guantanamo Bay to Honduras and on to Venezuela on Thursday in a deportation of dozens who had been held at the U.S. military prison on the island of Cuba. The government of President Nicolas Maduro said it had requested the repatriation of a group of Venezuelans who he said were unjustly taken to the U.S. naval base.
Now let's take a closer look at what the international press is covering. Bolivia's former leader, Evo Morales, has launched his 4th presidential bid, ignoring the constitution, which only allows 3 terms in office. Morales, who was Bolivia's first ever indigenous president, is also facing criminal charges.
Saudi Arabian daily Okaz's front page headline today said, quote, Saudi Arabia patron of peace. This comes after the talks that Riyadh hosted on Tuesday between Russian and U.S. diplomats to negotiate the end of the war in Ukraine. It also comes ahead of today's summit of Middle East leaders to discuss a counteroffer to Donald Trump's plan to displace millions of Palestinians in Gaza. Spain's former soccer chief Luis Rubiales was fined $10,455 on Thursday after a court found that his kissing of soccer player Jenny Hermoso after the 2023 World Cup final was non-consensual. Rubiales resigned from his position shortly after the incident, which caused widespread outrage, but maintained that the kiss was consensual.
We have a piece today from Spanish online media outlet Ethic on the benefits of sensory deprivation and healing the mind. Jacob, what's the story about?
Spanish journalist Mariano Toro Nader writes in Ethic that with noise and light pollution growing around us, seeking profound silence and darkness may be the ultimate balm for modern times. She writes, silence is usually defined as the absence of sound and darkness as the absence of light. But as bat expert and ecologist Johan Eklof says, the latter has value in and of itself. Living beings require both light and darkness for all of their systems to function properly. More and more techniques have recently been appearing that use it as a tool to alleviate stress, often in combination with noise cancellation, because together, darkness and silence create a sensory vacuum. They put a stop to the visual stimuli induced by light and the auditory stimuli of outside noise, and thus form a favorable space for introspection.
We have a piece translated from German daily Die Zeit on the upcoming German elections and how parties across the spectrum are moving rightward. An analysis of all election programs shows that German political parties have never been more right-wing than today. Of course, there's the far-right AfD party, but other groups have also toughened their stance on immigration and crime, and that even includes long-standing leftist parties like the Greens.
And from French business daily Les Echos, we have a piece about how the United Arab Emirates is becoming a major power in AI. MGX, Abu Dhabi's dedicated fund, has just joined Donald Trump's gigantic Stargate project, potentially starting a new golden age for the Gulf and challenging Silicon Valley.
We're closing things out today with our daily quiz question, which comes to us from Germany. According to a recent German court ruling, what cannot be considered art? Is it A, Paul Klee paintings, B, schnitzel and beer, C, Birkenstocks, or D, a Porsche 911? The correct answer is C. Birkenstocks are the typical German shoe. Sometimes they look chic and sometimes shabby, but Germany's Federal Court of Justice ruled they're just comfy footwear and not art. The company had filed a lawsuit against 3 competitors who sold sandals that were very similar to its own. Our regional court in Cologne had initially recognized the shoes as works of applied art and granted the orders, but Cologne's higher regional court overturned the orders on appeal.
That's the latest from around the world. If you liked this podcast, we'd really appreciate it if you could help us out with a follow, a share, and a 5-star rating on your preferred podcasting platform. For more of the best of the international press delivered exclusively in English, visit us at worldcrunch.com. We'll see you Monday for another episode of 6 Minutes. Bon weekend.